Hello,
Oh,
hello, hello, my friend. How are
hello,
you?
beautiful. I'm good. Grateful to be here. How are
Right?
you?
I've been better, but I'm okay. I said today to somebody, they said, "How are you?" And usually my answer is I'm well, but I'm
Mhm,
like, I'm about 80% well.
mhm.
So, it's allergy season in Georgia, and I've been doing some traveling lately, and I made the mistake of not taking my allergy meds. And I don't know if it was
Mm,
for a day or 2 days, but by the time I realized it, my immune system was already suppressed and this was up. And my body was like, I think it really is just about, hey, Christine, your schedule's been a little cram packed lately. This is me, my body talking to me at the
yeah,
moment. You can't
right.
tell the way she talks to me sometimes. She's
Mhm.
a little like,
Excuse
hey,
me.
excuse me.
Yeah.
I need you to pay attention and take a day off.
Mhm.
I need you to practice what you preach and, you know, create some more rest for yourself. And if you are unable to do that without help, we will make sure you are given help to do
I
that.
will help you. Okay. Yes. Yes. And that's honest, and I love that we talk about that on the podcast.
Mhm.
Really checking in with yourself. How are you today? Why
Mhm.
is that?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's realistic. That's honest. Should we
All
introduce
right.
ourselves? Let's go ahead
Let's
and jump in.
introduce ourselves. Let's do it.
Yes. Hi, ladies. I am Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial business owner, the founder of Shalo Glow, a handmade shea butter company. I am your champion for natural self care and practical business systems.
Hey, y'all. I'm Christine Gotro, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, published author, and a dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself in community care.
Together, we are Women Connected in Wisdom, a podcast grounded in the eight dimensions of wellness.
And we like to get together every week with special guests for weekly intentional conversations about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness. Like, how do
Yes.
we do this?
Right. Right. I want to go ahead and give the definition. I know we usually chop it up a little bit, but I am so excited about this conversation. I say we let the ladies know and just let the conversation flow the way it goes. What do you think?
Well, yeah, because you can give it now and
Hmm.
then we can give it again right before we bring our guest up. So tell
Love
our
it.
listeners, what are we talking about today?
Okay, today for episode 66, we are talking about environmental wellness, and that is supporting your good health by occupying pleasant, stimulating environments that enhance well-being. It promotes interaction with nature and also creates enjoyable personal environments both in and out of your workplace. This includes knowing the type of environments that you thrive in and having an intentional relationship with these places, including the earth.
I love it.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, we talk about environmental wellness in so many different ways, but like if
Mhm.
folks are listening and you're at work, there's environmental wellness about the actual space you're occupying. And you can look at it from the point of view of what does your work contribute to our planet and protecting our environment on the larger scale too, right? There's our individual and then there's our group about how do we create environmental wellness.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting even when we're trying to figure out which category does it go in, If I'm thinking about the environmental wellness in my workplace, does it actually fall under social? Is it the way that I interact with my coworkers that affects the environment, or is it the actual color of paint on the wall or the lack of windows or a
Right.
lot of windows or different things that might affect it? So when we think about things, even like we were talking about going deeper into reproductive rights and things that are going on right now, to have a safe environment, to feel comfortable having that conversation is environmental wellness, So that's something
Right.
I'm intentional about now, creating my environment and setting it up for what I'm about to do.
Right. In Stillpoint, Dr. Collins and I wrote about, we really had a whole chapter on physical wellness as it relates to your work environment, like the chair you're in. Like we spend so, I mean, I know some people have thought about this more since the pandemic, right? We've Are you at a standing desk? Are you at a walking desk? Do you have, what kind of chair do you have? Like, all those things play into it on a micro level, and how it interacts with our physical being. And then what you were saying too, Shannon, I agree about the social part. Like, there's some big stuff happening in the United States right now. And how the environment that you're in, can you talk about it? Can you not talk about it? Like, how's it going to affect? I love the way that all the 8 dimensions of wellness weave together, to make our whole parts, right?
Absolutely. So let's talk more about that. I know that you are my person that I go to when it's politics or how I can reach out
Mhm.
or what part is appropriate for me to pay attention to stay relevant and know what's going on from an area that I can be um, helpful in. So when you're thinking about reproductive rights and what's going
This
on,
week? Oh,
yes.
yeah. So what happened this week is, there were some leaked documents from a clerk at the Supreme Court. So it's not official yet, but they feel like it's coming down the pipe. Is that, they're talking that the Supreme Court in the United States, may have voted to strike down the landmark Roe versus Wade decision. And so it's these were from leaked documents. So, like I said, it's the opinion's not completely out. But the last when this came out, this week, people are protesting. People are talking about it. Um, you know, for so many reasons, and this is a really hot political topic for a lot of people. But I think when I think about this, especially for women connected with wisdom and females, people that identify as female, um, to me it's a medical reproductive issue. It's a medical rights issue. um, the other thing I think about is the importance of voting, y'all. I mean, we have seen what has happened, and this goes into the environmental rights decision, the wellness, and talking about any issue. If you are listening, and no matter which way you believe, the importance of voting, of who are you voting for, it impacts our courts, it impacts our system, it impacts our personal lives. Like, a lot of people said, oh, it doesn't matter, my vote doesn't count. Well, we are seeing the effects of that right now. We are seeing what is happening on the decisions that are going to impact every day decisions that women in this country make. So right now in Georgia, we have, it's early voting. So that's the other thing I want to put in the show notes is how to vote, like how to look up, are you registered to vote? Check your voter registration, check out what elections are happening, and vote. Do your research and vote. Vote your value systems and what you believe, but it does matter. And, you know, there's a lot, there's a lot that, may change, and things that women in this country have taken for granted for a long time, and may be changing pretty quickly. And I kind of want to wait to see what comes out fully before we talk about it more. But
Mhm.
we need to be paying attention, y'all. Like, we need to be paying attention, and we need to be making decisions, um, with intellectual wellness, and knowing where we can make an impact. I guess
Mhm.
that's the way to say it. So,
Absolutely. And that's why I was saying that's why I valued um, your perspective and your experience and the conversations that we had that led to this podcast. Like, you know
mhm,
what? I get insight on so many different levels from these women. We need to have these conversations bigger places so different people can know how to consider it. But absolutely a daily basis, from whether it's the taxes that we pay on different things at the gas station or reproductive rights and what that might mean as far as your options that you have in different situations. So absolutely for waiting to have something definite so we're not having
mhm,
opinions on things that
mhm.
aren't, but paying attention to it is what,
Ooh, yeah,
I've been grateful for the political perspective. But
right.
okay.
Well, and it's that time. It's that time.
Yes.
So check your voter registration,
Do the
check out
research
what's
and
going
vote.
on, do your research. There's all
Mhm.
kinds of ways to do your research to know. candidates' values and what they believe in to see if they align with your own, and vote, because your
Right.
vote matters. So,
Absolutely.
whew, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge thing when we talk about women, right? And we talk about lifting
Mhm.
up the voices that aren't usually heard. A lot of times in situations when you talk for so long and you're cut off or cut short, or um, your perspective is misconstrued, a lot of times I think it leads to not putting your voice out there, not even voting because you
Mhm.
feel like it doesn't matter, you know? So I know that sometimes it may feel like, oh, well, if I vote, we still don't know what this candidate is going to do once they get in office or get that
And that's
position.
true.
And that's true. But it's also just like a homeless person that's asking for money and you don't know what they're going to do with the money, but you did your part. And that's the important thing as far as us and our wisdom and action and the things that we do. So that's how I think about it. I'm going to do my research and vote. So at least I tried to,
Right.
be on the right side of what my goals were.
Right. When you say that, did you ever watch the Netflix movie Don't Look Up?
Yes.
I'm going to be curious if our guest watched that movie or not. But in the Don't Look Up, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it's a spoiler alert,
Mm-hmm.
but one of the lines at the very end that just was hugely impactful to me was
Mm-hmm.
when they said, "At least we tried." Right? Because
Yeah.
they were activists, they were whistleblowers, they were running around talking about it, and they didn't get listened to. They didn't, there was a lot of nonsense happening, but they knew, just with what you're saying, like, they knew they tried.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It's interesting because yours is so deep. One of my favorite lines from the end of the movie is, "Last man on earth, we out here," and he's still on social media streaming. Who are you talking to? I said, "This man is going to be at the top of the algorithm, okay? Because he was the first one after everything happened." Like, ugh, it was an interesting movie, wasn't it?
that's hysterical. Hey, you want
Yes,
to read this definition again and pull our guest up here? Because I can't wait. These
absolutely.
women talking about people who are making a difference in the world. I can't wait to have
Yes,
this
and
conversation.
environment, right?
All right.
Okay, so for environmental wellness, it is again supporting your good health by occupying pleasant, stimulating environments that enhance well-being. It promotes interaction with nature and also creating enjoyable personal environments, both in and out of your workplace. This includes knowing the type of environments you thrive in and having an intentional relationship with these places, including the earth.
Mm. I love that. Intentional relationships. Our guests today, y'all, Ann Smith and Angela Weber, are circle evangelists. I can't wait till they define that term for us. Facilitators, speakers, organizers, excuse me, and co-creators of the newly formed Green Tent Circle. They were recently speakers at the Commission on the Status of Women at the United Nations, and we are thrilled to have them on our stage and have this conversation today. Welcome, 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 Ann and Angela.
Welcome, ladies.
Oh, you got to come off mute.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Hello. Hello. How wonderful to join you in your lively and meaningful discussions. Thank you for inviting us.
You are
Absolutely.
so welcome.
And Angela, can we hear you? Or oh, no,
Angela,
not
I think you may have to go back out and come in again, my friend. I
I've
know
had to do it.
Angela is joining us from Germany today, so we've been having a little bit of internet issues for folks who are listening, but we are glad she's with us, and we're hoping she can go back out and come back in.
Yes. And
So
go ahead, Christine.
I was just going to ask, while Angela's working on that, Anne, will you tell us about the Green Tent Circle and circle evangelist? I love that term.
well, I always say you can either be, when two or three are gathered together, you can either be a hierarchy, which ranks our diversity, which is the white male on top, then the white female, people of color, and it goes children, and it goes down. And the majority of creation is not valued, right? We're seen as objects, and we can be raped, we can be beaten, we can be bought, we can be sold. So this, the opposite of that patriarchal hierarchy, is a sacred circle that is ancient, it's modern, and it's postmodern. And you can have a circle in your workplace. You can have it in churches, you can have it under trees, you can have it on the beach, you can have it wherever, because it is honoring that we live, that we are on sacred space. And I want to even say for Shannon, in your office, everything in your office is made by nature. It's manufactured, but all of the materials come from nature. Everything comes from nature. Everything comes from Mother Earth. So you can be checking to make sure that not only am I coming from that place of reverence for all life and myself, but also that I am honoring that we are in relationship with all creation. And the more that we can make that an intimate relationship, the more that we thrive and we feel healthy and we feel loving and compassionate. And no matter what comes down the pike, I love that you're talking about don't look up. That whole climate crisis, denial, is that we can deal with the realities as co-creators of something beautiful. That's the big difference, is we put our energy in that. And when we're in circle, we're not alone. And all tough subjects, like Shannon, we talked about, and for Christine, if you're talking about abortion, that is a very divisive subject. But in a sacred circle, every voice counts and is listened to without judgment. Now that's huge. And we say, speak from your heart and listen from your heart, because that conversation will be much more different then.
Right. I totally agree with you, Anne.
Are you hearing the feedback? Is there feedback when I speak? Everybody. You don't hear the feedback, Anne? Okay. Here we
I
go.
think
It sounds a little bit better now.
Yeah, I think, Anne, when you're unmuted, we have major feedback, but that's okay. I muted you. I think, Angela, your sound was working. So let's see if we can bring you up here, Angela. Hello, Angela.
Can you hear us, Angela?
Oh, no.
Okay.
It was working, and then when I put you on mute, it didn't. Oh, I'm so sorry, Angela. So frustrating. Well, if you want to type in the chat, Angela, go ahead and do that, or try to come back in one more time. We can try it, because I think you were live when you came back in, and we can have you come straight back in. The joys of tech. It is wonderful to have an international podcast, and sometimes international gets a little tricky.
Yes,
so
it
we'll
does.
give Angela a second. Yeah. Okay.
And while we're working on the sound, I would love to talk more about the Commission on the Status of Women. What was that like? When I think about the status of women, I usually think about health concerns, right? Reproductive rights, like we were talking about. I think about women's financial status at the moment. What were the topics, and what was that like in relation to the Green Tent movement?
Well, every year, the Commission on the Status of Women meets in New York City, and because of COVID, we've been working on Zoom. We've been having more on Zoom instead of the UN in New York City. But there are 12 issues. That's called the Platform for Action document. It took us 20 years as women from around the world, and all our governments agreed to it by consensus, that will improve the lives of women and girls. And that's health, education, that is economics, that's poverty, that is the environment, armed conflict. Let me see what else, if I can. Did I say the girl child? The girl child. Um, and women in the media. This will you will love. You know, how often are women portrayed again as, you know, as objects instead of us as being royal subjects, you know? So,
Yes, we could talk about that all day.
yeah. so so what this does is that they meet and we have all kinds of workshops. They had 750 workshops that is around the edges while the United Nations member states are meeting to go over this document that was signed, sealed, and delivered in 1995 in Beijing at the Fourth World Women's Conference. I was there. It was the most wonderful event you can imagine. Around the edges, the women's world, the women's huge tent of 40,000 women. So you can imagine. So yeah.
Angela's smiling. I remember, Angela, I was so excited to meet you when Anne was speaking about everything that you ladies did. Are you able to hear us now?
Yes, I am.
Oh, we can hear you. Okay, so I'm gonna give you the floor, and can you tell us more about this day in '95, and what about the girl child? What is that category, and why is there a difference in the financial category and poverty for the women for the 12 categories that we look at?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, can you hear us? I can hear you.
Okay. Um, I'm not sure which categories Anne was talking about,
No problem.
but if we are talking about poverty, actually, poverty is structural in our world. So, and women and young girls, they are the most harmed by this structure. So, when we have to talk about poverty, we have to talk about women. We are maybe 10% of the world population that has access to a computer and a Wi Fi and 3 meals a day. And we really forget it all the time. So, how can you have a better world when there is so much differences among ourselves, not only among men and women, but among women themselves? You know, there are women that has possibilities, have a, a good life, but most of the women in the world don't. They have no access to anything that we take for granted. And they are the ones that live close to nature. They are the ones that still hear and understand Mother Nature because they need it in order to survive. And we are living a life where we are just apart from nature. We don't belong to nature. We feel as if we are more than nature, and we are not. We are part of it. And we have to learn from these women, from their wisdom, how to connect ourselves, how to be close to nature in ways that we don't have this hierarchical and patriarchal society that is
Right.
really the base of the harm that we are doing to the world and to ourselves mostly.
hmm So when you think about the green tent circle, what message would you like our listeners to have about how to get reconnected, right? If we're so industrialized and modernized, used to our technology and grocery stores that have produce year round, how do we reconnect based on what you
Well,
talked about? talk
I
about?
think the first point is how to reconnect with ourselves, because we live in a life just looking outside. It's so crazy, so quick, and we don't connect to ourselves. What I really need, what is really good for me. We are killing ourselves with so much chemical and bad food and all those kind of things, besides the stressful lives that we had on. So how do we change that? We start within us and not be compelled to have, but to be. How can we be, really be?
I love that, Angela.
Well, that's when Angela, oh, you heard the echo. But I was saying, when Angela and I've known each other since the early 90s, and we formed a relationship of trust. I met her in Brazil. We were doing a world conference on women. And when she said, it's time to really bring out the women's stories. See, that's what we get when we're at the UN. We hear women's stories from around the world, especially from the Southern Hemisphere, that you don't hear in the United States. And so we said, let's bring the marginalized stories and highlight them, because we can learn from them. The same as we can learn from all of our Indigenous women, elders and young youth and etc.
I completely agree with you, Anne. I had the privilege of speaking at the Commission on the Status of Women before the pandemic. I had been doing some work with refugees from Turkey, and we got to talk on a panel about the power of somatic body wisdom and interplay and building community and healing trauma. And being with those thousands of women from all different countries and all different places and perspectives was really powerful. So when I think about the Grin Tent Circle, I don't think we've talked about it much yet, but how do people get involved, and what does it mean on a practical level?
Well, I'll start and then Angela jump in. We have on our website, we have how to start a circle, the basic circle principles and guidelines that are used universally, and other resources. And one of the things that we say, circle is innate to us as women. It's in our DNA. You don't have to have a circle expert. And when we start a circle, or anyone starts a circle, everybody involved is a leader, is a facilitator. So they can't say, well, gee, Christine, you really screwed up, because we're all responsible for the success. And so it can be, here's our flag. You can have a flag if you want. You can have a button, and it can be a regular tent, a red tent, a yurt, a sweat lodge, a blanket under a tree. It can be on the beach. It can be in the classroom.
Plantation.
Yeah. and a banana plantation, which you're going to tell that story. It can be in your office. It can be in any church room. See, it can be anywhere and everywhere. And you just say, I have the green tent circle in me, and I will go anywhere and everywhere. Whoever wants to join me, come and join me. And tell your stories. And so, Angela, tell the story of the women and the banana plantation.
Well, it's a very poor community in the northeast of Brazil that I have been working for more than 15 years. And they love the idea of a green tent, but they don't have means to produce a green tent. So they decided that where they work and get the sustenance of their own lives, because they are sustenance agriculture workers. And they decided that the banana plantation would be their green tent because they use the whole banana tree. Because after the banana tree give it the bananas, it dies. So they use the leaves, they use the steam, they use everything, they even to make food for themselves and their children. So there is no leftover, everything is used. And that's their green tent, because it's a place where they are together and they are working with nature in a kind of work that leaves no, excuse me, I lost the word, no sewage, nothing. It's completely renewable. So it's important, I think, this idea of a circle, because we are born from a very dark place to light, and we live our life and we go back to this dark place that we don't know nothing about. So this is the cycle of life. When we ended this cycle, like 3,500 years before Christ, and when we change the system to patriarchal system, and the churches, the religions stop it with the worship of Mother Earth, our mother. It's when we started to become hierarchical and patriarchal, and we have this within ourselves because we are the goddess, and we have this cycle within our own bodies because we produce life and we give birth and we die. And this is the natural circle of life. In nature, everything is like that. So we have to reconnect through this feeling of being part of a huge circle where nothing goes to waste. We live, we are born, and then we go back, and everything is somehow transformed.
And when I think about the earth, that's one of my favorite parts of it, right? That earth and nature returns to itself. And so, Anne, when you're talking about the hierarchy and the patriarchy of everything, it reminds me of Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, actually, and how it talks about celebrating the differences. So instead of saying, oh, well, Anne, you're here. Okay, who is Shannon? What is she like? She's here. Our strengths and weaknesses can complement each other, and we make each other stronger by being in the circle and working together, just like the river works with the trees and the grass and the animals to all create the environment that we need for women connected in wisdom, and the green tent circle and everything that you ladies have done across the world. you need the person beside you for it to have that big of an impact and an influence. So that's a beautiful thing that I see about how nature works together and how we work together when we want to intentionally as well. You're muted, Anne.
Oh, sorry. In business, they're catching on to this, Shannon, because it is when you have everyone participating, everyone's creativity and excitement about any project that is going on in business, just imagine how you've reached a greater potential. Instead of having a few, oh, this is the great idea, they're not checking with the people who actually are going to be putting together the idea, and then you've got the middle management that's caught in between. But when you have everyone participating in the business, you're going to have success because it's shared leadership. Everyone's valued. Everyone's contribution is important. And you'll find in many now, I would say when I worked at the National Episcopal Church as the director of women's ministries, I said, if you want to go and hear really what Circle is about and what full participation and shared leadership, go to the business department for their books. Because you're not going to find them in the theology that we're doing right now. But it hopefully will start changing, and is because of the indigenous theology that is coming in, and the womanist theology that is coming in, and the Latina theology that's coming in. The women are changing that. And it is so exciting because you have fun. It's creative. There's no mistakes. It's just like, oh, well, let's try it differently.
Absolutely. And when I think about business, right? In the intro, I talk about natural skincare. Clearly, that's Shea Low Glow and the Shea Butter Company. But the practical business systems, I'm thinking about big business, and big business is based off of teams and systems. So instead of me trying to be the boss, of course, it makes sense for me to carry a little bit and you to carry a little bit, Angela and Christine, and then that be based on our strengths. We were talking about that with Jennifer last season with the finances, and sometimes how when you step back from a position that might not be aligned with what you have going on right now, and instead you pass it to somebody else or even do it with somebody else, you create more space for that person. So I think it makes sense to work that way. And even though we see it coming from um, certain, I guess you could say, classes of thought, it still benefits men. It still benefits everybody because then we working smarter. We're not as worn out, overextended, and burnt out. And everybody again can come to the table and see the relevance of their gifts and be celebrated as we reach goals and do different things, whether it's in business or specifically for the environment.
Well, two books I want to lift up.
Yes.
This one's called Reinventing Organizations.
Mm.
And it's a Frenchman, businessman. Well, no, he's very, very spiritual. And it shows how you can go what he calls from red, which is very much hierarchy, patriarchy, to teal, which is spiritual. It is wonderful. And Patagonia, and there's many, many success stories of companies that are doing this. And the productivity, the people never want to leave. They don't want to leave this place because they're invested in it. And then the other book for starting a circle is The Millionth Circle. And I can put those in the chat, and that's by my friend Jean Shinoda Bolen. And this is a metaphor for the tipping point. We know there are a million circles, but when there is the millionth circle, that morphic field, that tipping point, then we have changed the world. And we get to do it circle by circle, in relationship. It's fun, it's healthy. It's not hard work when you're having fun, and creative and respected. So
I love that. Okay, ladies. So I think I have one more question. When we talk about somebody who's used to being in the patriarchal society, right? Again, I think about being able to get the produce that I want year round. That's not natural, right? Strawberries don't grow year round outside in Georgia where I live. You have to get that from different places. Um, Again, life is different now that we're more industrialized. When you say to get yourself connected and know where you are as a first step, what else would you have, or what other piece of advice would you give somebody whose life is still industrialized? How do they connect to Mother Earth and do that starting with themselves? I would love to give them some action points outside of the ones Christine and I always give them, like journaling or meditation or putting your feet in the grass.
I think it starts with what you put inside of your body, what you are eating, what you are wearing. Do you need to buy so much? Can we exchange, use second hand? Is it so important to be so fashionable when we don't want, at the rate things are going, if we are going to be here to enjoy that for how long? So these are questions that we have to make ourselves every day. How can I live without producing so much waste?
I love that.
How
How
can
can I
I
live without?
share?
I'm sorry, go ahead. What you said, how can I share?
Yeah, what I have, how can we have a system of a market where we can exchange things? We don't need money. We have
Hmm.
to get together and exchange things.
I think that's
We are doing
important.
that in Europe, here in Italy, in Verona. Lots of markets just for swapping things.
Mm,
This is good for Earth.
hmm.
My daughter here in Germany, she's a doctor. She does not buy anything. She goes and just gets secondhand. Today she needed a shoe for her daughter. She put a note for some mothers, and voila, there's a shoe that one of the another mother was not using anymore. So why can't we do that more? It's so simple, and take out the stress to make money, to buy more, to have this, to have that. It gives us time to enjoy life.
Yes, I agree with you. I've been thinking about it since I recently added clothes back to my budget, right? Through COVID, I wasn't getting clothes at all, lost 50 pounds, moved out, donated stuff, sold things, right? And so now rebuilding my wardrobe, I realized, I already have something that I can wear with those outfits, or I don't need to buy this today. Where are we really going? If I'm still inside or at work, where am I going to wear this dress? To the grocery store? No, you don't need it. And so those are conversations I'm having with myself. I also love the idea of a mother sharing circle. I used to give my clothes to the younger ladies when I was in high school. Of course, give to Goodwill and things like that, but being really intentional about it, that's a great idea.
I think when we also make it so that it's not out of scarcity, we're not depriving ourselves, that it is really out of simplifying our life and being connected to nature and to one another. I remember it was like the hand-me-downs from the neighborhood to our children. They would say, yes, now I'm big enough. I'm big enough as Sally. I can wear her Sally's clothes. And or I can say, gee, Angela, I love you. Thank you for your scarf. She was tired of it. I get to wear it now. But I also get to wear with that kind of vibration and love of Angela and the people that we exchange from. So it's not out of deprivation. And I think what COVID did for us was slow us down. And we know we can't go back to what it was. So all kinds of circles in which we just support one another, celebrate one another for simplifying our life, making it healthy.
Ladies, this has been such a good conversation. Thank you so much for bringing your wisdom, for bringing this way of being, and for this new movement of the green tent circle. So we're going to put all of this info in our show notes so people can find you and connect with you and get involved.
Okay, thank you so much, ladies. So, what we do at the end of each of our conversations is talk about a wisdom in action. So, we're talking about environmental wellness, right? This week coming up, and you can start if you want, or Angela, whichever one feels like they have their answer ready first. What are you doing as an action step this week in your environmental wellness?
Well, I live in the state of Florida, and there is a petition to have the rights of nature be in our Constitution. And if that happens, that means we all, and that's really around clean water. Clean water is a health right. Everyone should have access to clean water. But if we are now getting petitions, this started at Earth Day celebration in Naples, Florida, and it's going to go all over the state. But this is one action that everybody can take in my state. And you can also look up in your own state, as it's actually came from Latin America, but it's coming here, the rights of nature.
Okay, so are you saying that you're going to sign the petition, or are you saying that you're letting other people know about it and encouraging them to sign it?
We are getting the news out and having petitions for people to sign. And then there's a place to send it back, and then they send it up to the State Department. So my thing is getting the word out. It is educating people what it is, why it's so important.
That makes sense. Hashtag getting the word out. That's important. Okay, Angela, what about you?
Well, I think what I'm trying to do every day is try to be more true to myself and Mother Nature, Mother Earth. And my way of doing that is trying to talk with people and to find knowledge of how not to think in this patriarchal way, because the structure of our life is patriarchal. We think in a very patriarchal way. So I was even talking with Anne this week. It's a struggle every day because we women are patriarchal. It's so embedded into our life system that it's a struggle every day to think of how to disconnect from this structure and try to live a life with nature in a very, like, never buy a bottled water or things. It seems small things, but if you can talk about this and people understand how difficult it is, that we have to be all together in order to achieve this goal, which was actually, I really believe that it's the only way to have a possibility of a life in this earth, because we live, earth is our home. We are brothers and sisters all around
Yes.
the world.
And I love what you said earlier too, Angela, about how our needs are the world's needs. Flowers have to be watered. I have to be watered. So when we talk about wisdom in action, um, again, I did just get a Brita filter actually. We had the filters, we didn't have the pitcher. So we were buying water bottles. No more. Okay. We have the Brita pitcher. So I'll say hashtag not buying bottled water. Okay. And I also say hashtag more outside time. Before I went back to work since COVID, I was running 4 times a week. And so that was great outside time, right? Got to see the trees and feel the temperature and listen to the birds chirp. Now I haven't been doing that since I walk so much. So I've specifically taken running off for a reason, but I still need the outside time. So I need to put that in my schedule. That's what I'm doing this week.
I love that, Shannon.
Thank you.
My wisdom in action this week. I want to go outside so bad. I'm hoping my allergies will let me. I am going, probably I'll just wear my mask that, I have and take my medicine, but I am going to plant some plants. I'm planting a butterfly garden, and we did a plant share. An incredible artist and butterfly enthusiast that's local had a plant share this last weekend, and you could donate towards different environmental causes and come out with seedlings. And one of my dear friends, Shelly, I was out of town. I was out of town doing an event, and she went and took a list of things that I was looking for. I mean, only a good friend would do this, right? And brought back these plants for my butterfly garden. So my hashtag in action is to plant plants. I'm a big believer in planting trees and planting plants and getting your hands in the dirt. So that is going to be mine this week. Ladies, we are so delighted that y'all came on Women Connected in Wisdom.
Yes.
So lovely to meet y'all and be with you, even with techno issues. We're grateful that it worked. And
Yes.
we will put everything in the show notes, and hopefully folks will reach out and get involved in the Green Tent Circle movement and be a part. I know, Anne, when you and I talked, I was, a lot of folks know about the Red Tent Circle, right? As a place to rest and rejuvenate. And the metaphor I had when you were telling me about the green tent is green is for go. Y'all, we need to have action around our environment and our environmental wellness. So the green tent to me means go. Go out there, circle up with your women, listen to the stories, tell your stories, and let's make a difference. So thank y'all for making a difference and being with us today. We are very grateful.
Thank you so much, ladies.
All
Yes,
right.
That
was
so
awesome.
Interesting how our environmental episodes are some of my favorite because they're not the conversations that I would usually have. As a person who went to college, psychology and managing restaurants, those are the type of conversations I'm having, So to think about the environment and just how something simple like, hey, I need some shoes. And you get some shoes from somebody who is not using them in a useful way, still in the abundance mindset, like she said, sounds like a win-win situation. Win-win-win.
Right? I think
Yes.
when you say it like that, I think about one of my favorite artist groups and their song, and especially with everything we were talking about before our guests came on, but even with
Yeah.
them, Rising Appalachia, Leah and Chloe are two of my favorite Southern Appalachian artists, and they have a song called Resilient. And it's about continuing and being in circle and being in ceremony, but finish the song with, and I will learn to listen. And, I think that's so powerful when you talk about, oh, these are conversations we usually wouldn't have, or, oh, I wouldn't think about it this way. Or, I think if we all listen to each other more and, like Claire Brummel said about universal needs on our show. And
Yeah.
I think that the need to be listened to and heard. And I know the power of women's circles. I've belonged to them for 30 years. And I always say I am because they are. I have had some powerful women in my life, and it's why I get to be who I am today and show up and do this awesome show with you. And
Yes.
so I recommend it to everybody. So
Yes.
I was
Oh.
actually I forgot to tell Ann this.
What?
So Jean Bolen, whose book she recommended. So I was at the Parliament of World Religions pre-pandemic. I was presenting with my friend and teacher Glenda Taylor, who is at oneandallwisdom.com. And I have been a part of Glenda's women's circles for 30 years, and she's been doing women's circles for 40 years. But Jean was going around and there were, at this Parliament of World Religion, there were probably 50,000 people there, right? And it's always funny how like attracts like. And
Yes.
so Jean and Glenda and I knew who Jean were, but we don't know her personally, right? And so she
Right.
comes up and hands Glenda a button or a sticker and said, "You should do women's circles. You'd be good at it." And we cracked up because yeah, she's really good at it. It's been her life's work. And and so it was really fun because they are powerful, gathering people together. As you and I know. I mean, we gather people together virtually through the podcast, through our community, through our manifesting groups, and grateful to be in circle with you, my friend.
So grateful. And when I think about it, when I started at Manifestation Mondays, going on 4.5 years ago now, this is the 4th year. What is it? 3.5? We're in the 4th year, okay? When I started, I was a salary manager, was not a business owner. Now about to be 2 businesses in, top 10% in the world, right? On the news, all of this stuff. And I definitely credit that to staying on track with our goals, talking about our wins, and being focused on being intentional throughout everything and resting. So you don't get burnt out, so.
And having these conversations.
Yes.
Right.
And before we get off to, let's say, Happy Mother's Day. First to you, Christine. Happy Mother's Day. Thank you for everything that you do. I was thinking about you and how you sent me this stuff for my tooth when I got my wisdom teeth taken out. I said, wait a minute, Christine's not feeling well. I should send her something, like it's my turn to take care of her. So we talked about it. I'm going to send you some Shalo Glow and get you taken care of. And that is my Mother's Day and my thank you present for everything that you add to my life.
Oh, thank you, my friend.
You're so
Yeah, to folks that are traditional mothers or non-traditional mothers, or mothering the earth, or mothering your friends, or you often play that role in our circle, Shannon, that you reach out to everybody and make sure they're okay, and you check in with folks, and you have that nurturing aspect for sure. And
thank you.
Just grateful for all the ways, and grateful for this conversation today. So
absolutely. Okay. You ready to wrap it? Ready to wrap the first episode of season 8, episode 66. We will be back, ladies, next week, live at 5. Thank you so much for joining us. In the meantime, be well, be wise, be whole. We'll see you soon.